Welcome to the Tavern Between Dimensions, a monthly tabletop RPG podcast. My name is Carl Dunesh, and I shall be your bartender for your time here today. Joining me for service is the Dungeon Master for the Explorers of Elsewhere, Dan Tyree.
Hello!
And the body model for the Statue of Liberty, Anton Bain.
That is me, absolutely.
I was wondering, because I thought last time I went to New York, which was many years ago, and saw you afterwards, I was like, that guy looks familiar.
I've seen that booty before. Here we go.
How are you both?
Yeah, I'm good. I am recovering from a raucous birthday.
Yes, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. That is a lie. I'm an old man. I have not been doing anything raucous in the slightest.
I don't know, playing Wild Beyond the Witchlight is pretty raucous.
Yes,
Yeah.
I keep on. I've mentioned it in I think every single episode
So far.
of Tavern Between Dimensions so far. But yeah, we finally started. Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Sprock is alive. He's hit the table running.
Oh, that's very cool. I'm actually quite excited to hear about all the juicy details because we're not playing
No, we are not.
in
So,
RRL campaign, so that's really nice.
so maybe in a later happy hour, you might regale us with a few.
I think
Quite
we should get
possibly.
Julia on for a happy hour topic.
Mate,
The DM,
oh, that would be a good idea. Yeah, we
That
can
would be
bring
very
in.
good.
Yeah.
and then we kick Dan away.
Yeah, we just replaced Dan for an entire episode with Julie. I like that plan.
Yeah, me too.
If you like that plan as well, put a like down below.
Comment below. Let us know.
Excellent. Well, I think with that, let's move to our first segment. Now we're entering BYOB, where we make interesting and wacky builds. Anton, take us away.
So, on today's episode, Dan has got a build for us, and we kind of know what it is, but we don't fully understand what it's about. So, Dan, can you give us a run through of what your character is?
Yeah, absolutely. So close your eyes and picture, if you will, the sounds of battle begin to fade as the crows sweep down and begin their feast on the dead. Heavy footsteps reverberate out as an armored figure approaches an enemy combatant, mortally wounded, teetering on the precipice of death. As the poor soul looks up at this imposing figure and asks for forgiveness, our hero replies, "You will receive forgiveness, but not from me." Today, I would like to present Bahavada, who is
Eric.
no, he is
Look at
an avatar of one of the very many kind of death / kind of graveyard gods.
Great character.
in this particular build, he's actually a worshipper of Kalambor.
Oh,
God of
okay.
Death.
Or the Raven Queen, take your pick. Just a shepherd, a warden of souls to the afterlife.
So a grave
What class
cleric.
have you gone for?
So,
that's what I'm
yes,
saying. What class is it if it's not a grave cleric, Dan?
of course, yeah. So, Bahavara, I'm gonna present him as level 8.
Okay.
So, in terms of the levels at level 8, we're looking at a Paladin 7 and a Warlock 1.
Paladins.
A Paladin 1, yeah. So, the idea that I had behind this character before we kind of go in is that, Carl and I, we both started playing D&D during 4th edition. There were some things that 4th Ed did that I'm kind of happy didn't follow through to 5th, but there are some things that it did that I'm sad aren't as prevalent in 5th Ed as they could be. I'm a massive gamer, so I really loved the marking mechanic that 4th had across its various defender classes, and it was a pretty simple tactic. It was just a case of if you hit an enemy, they became marked, and they had disadvantage. Well, they had a penalty to attack anyone but you because you were kind of drawing their
That's it,
attention.
yeah.
I think there's a feat that does that, right?
Well, there's actually one of the fighter subclasses, Cavalier, effectively
Yes.
takes the 4th Ed marking
Well, that's
mechanic
right, yeah.
and over wholesale replaces the penalties with a disadvantage, and
Mhm,
I really
yeah.
like that.
Okay.
But are there any other ways of doing something similar with other classes in the game? And hopefully,
Podcasting.
this build will kind of do just that. So, yes, we start with the stats. So by the time we are at level 8, we've got strong focus on strength and charisma. Very importantly, this build does need strength and charisma. currently they're sat at 16 each. This is a frontline fighter, so Constitution is always nice. We'll put that at 12. You've got a bit of flexibility, as always, with the build. I've left Dexterity at base 10. No Paladins need Intelligence, so I've dropped that down to 8. I've put Wisdom at 13. I mean, you know,
Wisdom's it's a useful stat.
Wisdom's fine. The reason I put Wisdom 13 instead of Constitution 13 is that then does give us the opportunity to multi-class out to Cleric if we wanted to at some point in the future. But it's not on the books. But you know, you can if you want to. So it's a relatively well-rounded, standard kind of Paladin build in that sense. Baha Vada is a Dragonborn.
Nice.
I feel like we don't see enough Dragonborn at tables, especially with the release of Fizzbands not too long ago. The Dragonborn had a bit of a glow up, so I thought we take a Dragonborn out for a spin. This Dragonborn in particular is a bronze Dragonborn, so falls under the metallic category, and as a Dragonborn gets all of the things that come off the back of that with their metallic ancestry, so resistance to lightning damage, and has a lightning focused breath attack and so on and so forth. Given that we are a devoted acolyte, devoted avatar of our god, we've taken the acolyte background, just for flavor purposes, really. You get your standard background skills off the back of that, and you get, if you find friendly priests or priestesses or whatnot, then you can shack up for the night.
So here's the thing with Dragonborns.
Yes.
Is the most difficult thing about Dragonborns is the voice.
Well,
that's why they're rarely played.
What are
Is
you
to get
talking
the
about?
voice
I
right
mean-
is difficult.
I mean,
Because it has to be raspy.
does that have to be honest? I mean, I could easily imagine Dragonborn having a very sort of hello. I'm a Dragonborn.
well, I've discovered. Here's a little tip. I've discovered if you make your mouth as wide, frog-like as you can, that kind of helps muddy up your pronunciations enough that you sound a bit Dragonborn.
That's what you've been doing in EOE, isn't it? Like, I've noticed your mouth suddenly gets like jokery and quite wide.
Well, yes. Yeah. Nice and easy, and then you don't get that grit in there. All part of the build. So we start off as a Paladin. We get all the juicy stuff that a level 1 Paladin comes with: heavy armor, proficiency with all sorts of weapons and shields. And
do you get proficiency with con saves? I think you do, right?
You don't. No. So Paladin gives you wisdom and charisma. Charisma, cool. Maybe you won't. You're less likely to get banished at later levels. Wisdom saves are pretty good. Going forward, Paladin's not really going to care about the saves going forward. But off the back of that, you get your standard stuff. So you get your divine sense, you get your lay on hands, standard affair. At level 2, however, that's where this whole thing starts to kick in. So
what do you pick?
We will open Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, and we will pick up. We will pick up the new Undead Warlock.
Oh, so this is a naughty Paladin.
This is a naughty Paladin. Well, sort of. The blurb within the book kind of implies that you're getting your powers from someone like Strahd or Vecna or maybe Orcus or something. Someone really evil and gribbly. But hopefully you can just kind of paper over that with your DM, just to make it. Well, either you lean into that, or as the case here with Bara, it's not as evil and spiky.
As the Undead or Raven Queen. So what do you get with that?
So if nothing else, you get your pact magic. But we're only spending 1 level in Warlock, so the pact magic isn't going to give us that much, in a sense, going forward. It's nice to have 1 spell slot which rejuvenates every short rest, because Paladins, don't have that many spell slots over the space of their career. So having 1 that keeps on coming back is nice. It's a utility spell slot.
That's a good economy as well for them, because you're right. So they usually burn through, smite. I'm done.
Precisely. One thing it does give the build that a Paladin might not necessarily give normally is 2 cantrips.
Okay.
So off the back of that, I'm going to pick Green Flame Blade and Lightning Lure. There's an argument for, instead of Lightning Lure, you could do Toll the Dead. But the whole idea of this build is that it's like it's a tank. It's a bit of a gamey tank. So having Lightning Lure, which isn't something that you see very often, Having an ability
dope.
that could reach out 15 feet and drag someone towards you is quite useful. The Undead Warlock also then gets an expanded spell list, so you can add Bane and False Life to your spell list for free, and then you have to learn 2 spells as a Warlock, so we're going to pick Cause Fear, that's going to be important later,
Okay.
and Hex. So, at level 2, you have 4 Warlock spells, you have 1 slot with which to spend on them, but that's this is a start. The core bit, the reason we're going for the Warlock, however, the Undead Warlock has a feature called Form of Dread. Now, the Form of Dread is you can use it proficiency bonus times a day. This is a new kind of thing that they've been introducing with later books, which is handy because it allows this ability to scale up as you level.
Yeah.
However, because we're only grabbing 1 level of Warlock and switching back to Paladin later, but that ability is going to keep on scaling despite the fact you're not investing in Warlock.
Because proficiency isn't linked to classes.
Exactly. So that will, in inverted commas, keep up with you. What Form of Dread does is you will form a dreadful visage. For this character, I'm imagining it is something akin to a Grim Reaper. I mean, I have been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV recently, so I'm not going to pretend that I'm not getting some sort of inspiration from the new Reaper class, where you can transform into this horrifying thing and go a bit nuts. On the face of it, you get some temporary hit points. It's going to be D10 plus 1 for the whole career, so that's a bonus, really. You are immune to the fear condition, but also when you hit an enemy, when you hit a target, they must take a wisdom save based off your spellcasting DC, which is charisma based because it's a warlock feature. If they fail, they become frightened.
That's with any attack.
That's
So
with any melee attack
or melee
no,
attack.
any melee attack. So if you're frightened, you have disadvantage on attack and ability saves whilst your source of fear is visible to you, and you cannot willingly get close to them. Now,
I see how this is working.
You see where this is starting to go, okay? At this point, 2 times per day, you can assume this kind of Reaper image. You are the harbinger of doom for your target, and they can spend their last waking moments quaking in fear at your presence. And then we switch back to Paladin at level 3. We pick up a fighting style. Here is a decision point. You could go defense, you could go great weapon fighting. If we were to have a look at our character sheet, I've listed the weapon as a Reaper's Scythe, which doesn't exist in the D&D book per se.
Doesn't.
Like a polearm, maybe?
I'm doing this for kind of flavor, but it's kind of up to you. I've listed it as a great axe. You could list it as a glaive or a halberd.
Yeah, glaive.
You could list it as a scythe, but that's only a one-handed, and we want a chonkus two-hander. It's kind of up to you. You can kind of flavor this to text. Realistically, as long as it's some sort of slashing weapon, that's better. The way I look at it, if you flavored it as a great sword, you probably want to take great weapon fighting, because that extra ability to reroll 1s and 2s is more efficient on a great sword. But with a great axe with its D12 or a halberd or with its D10s, the defense bit might be a bit better. That kind of bumps you up or bumps your AC up by 1. You're not wearing a shield. It just helps a little bit. And that +1 AC is always going to be useful.
Yeah.
So if I get it right, you're basically using that warlock ability at level 1, which is going to scale, and then you're going into Paladin for the tank, and you're going to be making people get scared of you, have disadvantage on hitting you, and then whilst you're wrecking them at the same time.
Yeah. So
right.
Whereas the Cavalier mark basically tries to encourage your enemy to attack you because they suffer disadvantage if they don't attack you.
Yeah.
This build here, with its fear, like you're inflicting fear on the frightened condition on something, which means that, well, I mean, they just have disadvantages for everything, but also because they can't willingly get closer to you through certain kind of positionings, you can position yourself between the enemy and your allies. The enemy cannot get closer to you, so they can't get past you. That's the idea. There's going to be some occasions where you could jink it a little bit, but
you need a glaive for this. I feel like because you could basically hit them from 10 feet away, and then they can't hit you, therefore they have to run, right? Whilst maybe that could be a thing.
Reach weapons would be kind of cool.
So like picking up a halberd for the reach is 100%. 100% an option. But yeah, that's a personal taste kind of thing. Paladin 2 at this point would also give us some spells. So you get the whole Paladin list. We are able to pick Compelled Duel
Yep.
because, yeah, forcing something to fight you when it's frightened of you is quite kind of mean.
True.
And I'm going to say Wrathful Smite because that's got a fear effect on the back of it. So if you're not in your form of dread, you could still cast Wrathful Smite and apply that. And
Yeah, I feel like fear is an effect that's often overlooked. Like
it
we
is
always
often
think of
overlooked.
we always think of hold person or
Mhm.
some other effect, but this can be quite
Absolutely.
quite a problem. Yeah, does fear like stay? Do they get a save every turn? How does it
Sure.
work?
So yeah, something I should reiterate. So the form of dread specifically, that frightened effect lasts until the end of your next turn. So you're in a
Right.
position where you can put the fear on something, and then arguably, if you keep on hitting that thing, then it's going to carry on being frightened. But whatever is the threat at any given point, whatever's threatening to hit your squishies behind you, you just focus your attention on that. Lock it down with the frightened effect.
Ooh.
Kind of move on from
Pull
there.
on master is just going to be dangerous because you
Pam-
can get a third attack at let's say level 5
Yes.
with your bonus action, so you could actually target 3 creatures with that fear effect.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Really
mean,
naughty there.
it's
There you go,
so
naughty
you
Paladin.
can run with that. I mean, bear in mind that we're also attacking with Green Flame Blade currently, while we only have the one attack, just for that extra oomph. It does mean that if you've got 2 targets in front of you, you'll be able to hit both of them. You'll only inflict the frightened effect on your original target. Just don't gain that. But yeah, it's the idea is coming through. It really steps up a gear when we get to level 4, which is Paladin 3, and we pick up the Oath of Conquest from Xanathars. So I would argue that this isn't a subclass I look at too often because it's a bit too edgelord for me. But the whole point of the conquest is supposed to be kind of the lawful evil Iron Fist superiority kind of Paladin oath.
And you said this wasn't a naughty Paladin?
Wasn't a naughty Paladin. No,
I think it's a scary Paladin.
Yeah,
it's a scary Paladin. So off the back of the Oath of Conquest, first things first, you get some oath spells. So you're going to add Armor of Agathis and Command to your repertoire. Armor of Agathis is good for damned if you do, damned if you don't, in terms of hitting the Paladin. Command, one of the commands is Flee. That's
it is.
Or Cower.
Yep.
You get your Divine Health, which makes you immune to poisons, again, standard Paladin stuff. And you get your Channel Divinity. So, Channel Divinity, you have Guided Strike, which once you roll the dice, but before your DM has confirmed whether it hits or misses, you can choose to add +10 to the hit roll.
So is that a bit like the War Cleric, I think?
A bit like the War Cleric.
Probably the same, actually, but yeah.
+10 to hit isn't a powerful ability. It's actually not the one that I care about. The one I care about is the Conquering Presence. So, when you activate it, creatures that you want within 30 feet have to take a save, or they become frightened of you.
Right, so you are Mr. Scary.
Yeah.
Mr. Scary Senior. Right.
At this point, I think we can all understand where this is going. At level 5, we have an ability score increase. We have a choice. I mean, you could go +2 strength for more whoppy boppy, stab and choppy. We could go +2 charisma, which will improve our spell saves, which will increase the DCs for the fear checks, which I think arguably is kind of more important. Or you could take a feat. Now, the fact that we've taken a Dragonborn, there is a feat available called Dragon Fear. Which allows your Dragonborn to emulate the fearful presence of a monster manual dragon, which again is a kind of shut everything, inflict the fear effect on something nearby. At level 5 as well, the new Dragonborns get an upgrade to their breath weapon, their metallic breath weapon. You have the 2 breath weapon attacks effectively allow you to lock down more people by reducing their movements or kind of blasting them back away from you. You get both. You choose which you want to use when you use it. Again, it's a bit more kind of crowd control to add on top of your fear. Level 6, we pick up Paladin 5. We finally get our extra attack. We can now choose whether to use Green Flame Blade or 2 attacks. bear in mind, because Green Flame Blade upped in power at level 5, with a Great Axe, we're effectively talking D12 plus 3 slashing plus D8 fire, and then someone else takes D8 plus 3 fire, or you just get 2 axe attacks. Bear in mind now, because you've got 2 actual melee attacks, you can put the frightened effect on 2 separate targets when in your form of dread. So now you could lock down more opponents. The Paladin will pick up level 2 spells, as well as some extra oath spells. So we have Hold Person, we have Spiritual Weapon. So that's a good use for the bonus action in Spiritual Weapon. Hold Person for those, the pesky runners that, or maybe something that's immune to fear, perhaps. At this point, we've also picked up, in terms of spells, we've picked up Shield of Faith. We haven't got a shield, so that's kind of handy to have sometimes. And then, you could choose from Heroism, Bless, Protection from Evil and Good, just some sort of like utility spell to help your party out. Level 7, we pick up the Aura Protection, which, what I referred to earlier about the Paladin not really caring about saves, because at this point, especially if you bumped your Charisma up with the ability score increase, all yourself and allies within 10 feet of you get +4 to their saves.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. And finally, at level 8,
Right.
Paladin 7, we pick up the Aura of Conquest, which is to say that if something is within 10 feet of you and is frightened of you, its speed drops to 0.
Ooh.
Can't run away.
Can't run away. Also, if they start within start their turn within your aura, they take some splash damage. The idea being at this point that you've got so many ways of inflicting the frightened condition on your opponents. You can stand among them and they will be averting their eyes, quaking in their boots, as you and your allies send them to their deserved afterlife.
I get the Bing intro now. Like I see the concept.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the idea. Like, how can we take existing 5th ed mechanics and kind of almost emulate the 4th ed marking system?
This is a really interesting build because it's using a mechanic we kind of forget about, we rarely use, and making it like a centerpiece of a build.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that ignore the frightened condition. So undead aren't going to be too fussed that you want to shuffle them off this mortal coil.
That's true.
At that point, you can just pick up the slack as a paladin with a 2-handed weapon with smite. And it replaced the frightened condition with the dead condition.
I have to say, it's a good job that this is a player build and not a monster build, because it's really good synergy, and it just keeps everything locked down. That's nasty how much it keeps things in its place.
Yeah, it's that.
It's almost scary.
Yes, I personally really like the idea of kind of crowd control style characters, ones that can influence and manage the battle arena. It adds that kind of extra layer of tactics, and something well placed can really swing the scales of a battle from one side to the other. Yeah,
I was actually wondering about going further into Warlock and possibly going to Hexblade, and getting being single attribute dependent.
Well, so when I first looked at this, the idea of Hexblade was kind of interesting. However, the Hexblade is actually one of the patrons, so choosing that would stop you taking the undead, which would prevent you from taking the form of dread, unfortunately. Being single ability dependent would be great for this build, but any way I could not include a 1-level dip into Hexblade in all of our builds would be fantastic.
Yeah, we've had far too many Hexblades already on BYOB.
that is true. Hexblade is very, very good. Also, the other issue is that you can't choose a 2-handed weapon as your packed weapon if you're a Hexblade. So you wouldn't be able to have the whole great axe size going thing.
Yes.
So we do not recommend you go Hexblade with this build.
No,
it is
absolutely.
very good as it is.
Simply because you
Wow,
can't.
that was quite the U-turn, Anton.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about it, but it won't quite work.
As an idea, it's one that as you go up through the levels, it just kind of builds and builds upon itself. It's not really a class that you have to wait kind of 6-7 levels for it to turn on.
It literally turns on from like level 2.
from level 2, I mean, at level 1, you don't really need tactics or kind of advanced mechanics at that point.
I
But yeah,
hit.
as soon as you
I
get to,
attack. I hit.
precisely, yeah.
But
But by the time, yeah, even from level 2, just having that form of dread, that's the backbone of this whole build. Having that on-demand kind of frightened effect as and when you need it.
Nice.
awesome. Well, then that was a very, very, very cool build. I do not look forward to you playing it. It sounds terrifying,
Yeah,
but I'm sure somebody else will.
no, it's okay. What we'll do, we'll keep him a forever DM. And if none of us do one shots, he'll never get a chance to play it.
Awesome. Carl, all yours.
Well, fantastic. Well, as usual, we will try to make these builds available down below. I think we're close to figuring that out. So I know I've said that probably the last 3 episodes, but we are actually close this time. So hopefully you can have a very... We're going to rename this episode now Scary Paladins. It was going to be Naughty Paladins, but I think Scary suits better. So if you want your own Scary Paladin, hopefully they can join a table near you soon. And with that, I think we should move on. Thanks for watching. We release segments like this from the Tavern Between Dimensions every Friday here on the Explorers of Elsewhere channel. Otherwise, if you want to listen to the episode in full, you can check us out on Spotify and Amazon Music.